While watching Star Trek Enterprise recently, I kept coming back to one question. Who was the humanoid figure that was acting as a benefactor to the Suliban Cabal? Well, today we're going to answer that.
Don't get concerned with when.
Hey everyone, my name is Captain Jack and welcome back to Trek Central. Today in our mini-series of Star Trek Explained, we'll be exploring who the humanoid figure was in Star Trek Enterprise. From what we know early on, it's clear that he was involved in the Temporal Cold War. For those who don't know, the Temporal Cold War was a harsh conflict fought between several time-travelling factions, all from different points in time. All of them were attempting to manipulate history for their own benefit, a clear violation of the Temporal Accords. These factions were known to use proxy powers to carry out their missions. As such, the Cabal benefactor used the Suliban Cabal to do his bidding. He strongly opposed the Federation and its predecessor, the United Earth, going to such lengths as attempting to frame Earth's first Warp 5 starship, Enterprise, for a disaster they never committed.
But we need to recover the discs.
Archer, you know what happened the last time you failed me.
While the Cabal benefactor worked against the United Earth and by extension the Federation, he did help them on occasion, if not indirectly. In 2153, after Earth suffered a devastating attack at the hands of the Xindi, he had the Suliban Silik retrieve Captain Jonathan Archer and bring him to his temple chamber, where he provided Archer with the intelligence that the Xindi were the ones ultimately behind the attack, thus leading Starfleet to launch a mission to stop the Xindi. Ultimately, he was serving his own interests once again, as the Xindi were being used by another Temporal Cold War faction, the Spear Builders. Approximately 1 year later, in 2154, he ordered Silik to stow away on the Enterprise once again, this time because he knew that Temple Agent Daniels would be sending the Enterprise back in time to 1944. Daniels sent the Enterprise back in time as he wanted Archer and his crew to stop another Temporal Cold War faction, the Na'Kul, who were constructing a temporal conduit, which would have given them the ability to physically travel through time. The future guy, as we refer to him, wanted the specifications for his own uses in the Temporal Cold War. Ultimately, this plan failed as Silik was discovered and later killed while assisting Archer to stop the Na'Kul. The story of our Cabal benefactor stops here in official Star Trek canon, but we still don't know really much about him. We know he's from the future, but we have no name or species. To learn more about this character, we need to dive into the extended Star Trek lore. So let's go. As a disclaimer, the following information is not considered official Star Trek canon, so therefore we call it extended Star Trek lore. Now, the extended Star Trek lore gives us an immediate information about who the Cabal benefactor is. His name is Jamran Hanoff, a founding member of the Order of Omega. The Order of Omega was a rivalist eugenics movement in the 28th century, mostly using time travel in an attempt to reshape the timeline to a more desirable outcome. This isn't the first time we've heard of this. Even going as far to genetically manipulate species such as the Suliban. It's worth noting that the Suliban Cabal was not the only faction he acted as a benefactor for. In fact, he assisted countless factions across time and throughout the galaxy as we know it. Commonly, Hanoff would provide genetic enhancements in exchange for the species' loyalty. During the 24th century, his downfall began to start. He recruited members of the Romulan species who were so loyal to him that they were willing to die for his cause. Eventually, Shilan, who is a descendant of the Suliban Cabal and also an agent of the Federation Department of Temporal Investigations, attempted to discover the origin of his messages to these Romulans. Hanoff detected her and had her surgically removed from the timeline. Unfortunately for him, he was too late, as she transmitted enough of her data that someone would discover him. Hanoff fled to the 22nd century in order to hide, but was apprehended by Agent Daniels at long last. Eventually, he ended up detained and was questioned by agents from 3 separate time periods. Hanoff finally revealed that during his reign of time manipulation, he had affected so many different races, all because he wanted to alter history to benefit the Omegans. But shockingly, he was also a descendant of the Suliban, Romulan and Tandaran races, so had committed his actions to ensure his own existence. After a lengthy interrogation which took some time, he was tried for his crimes in the 31st century, receiving a fairer trial than he would have in his own time. Well, that's the story for Jamran Hanoff, aka the Cabal benefactor, the humanoid figure, or the future guy as many refer to him as. Now, interestingly enough, his story would have taken a different turn in official canon, if Star Trek Enterprise had a Season 5. Unfortunately, it never got a Season 5, so for the moment the extended canon is all we know. But luckily for us, Enterprise executive producer Brannon Braga gave fans an answer to who he would have been, so let's quickly explore that. Before I do go into this, I personally would consider the extended canon the story of the humanoid benefactor. as what Brannon Braga says here is not fully fleshed out in story, in my own opinion, but I'll leave you to decide. When Enterprise was on our screens, executive producers Rick Berman and Brannon Braga invented the character of a Cabal benefactor without actually deciding on who his identity was at the time. The reason they did this was because they wanted to introduce a villain who didn't want the human species to succeed and become the Federation we all know. Due to no one knowing who his character was, he picked up a fan favourite name of Future Guy, or the humanoid figure, as he was referred to in the Enterprise episode scripts. Eventually, the writers wanted to reveal his identity in the first season final, Shockwave, but decided against it. Brannon Braga stated that doing so just seemed too soon and did not service the story properly. Fan theories ran wild during Enterprise's runtime, with many theorising that the character of the Future Guy had to be someone who was already established on screen, leading many to believe that he would become Jonathan Archer. This fan theory was sort of correct, in a way. In 2012, Brannon Braga revealed to Star Trek fans on his Twitter that if Enterprise had a 5th season of the show, it would be revealed that the Future Guy to be Jonathan Archer, who had been trying to correct history and ultimately repair a corrupt future by influencing his younger self. Braga revealed that Archer being the Future Guy was his grand plan from the beginning, and the idea of the Future Guy being a Romulan was a red herring. This would contradict earlier statements, but I guess we'll not know for sure. So yes, that would have been the canon of the Future Guy if Star Trek Enterprise had its 5th season. It's quite weird and confusing, but like I said, personally, I take the extended Star Trek canon over this idea for the moment. Okay, so that wraps us up for this episode of Star Trek Explained today. For more Star Trek lore, news and other information, make sure to subscribe to Trek Central. You can also now follow us on Twitter and Facebook, or come and join our brand new Discord server built for Star Trek fans. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.